From Microbe TV, this is Office Hours for May 10th, 2023. I'm Vincent Racaniello, and welcome to another Wednesday evening corner of the internet where we can talk about viruses. And yes, Dan Wilson will be joining me around 8:30. Don't worry, he has a child to put to bed. You know how that is. It takes a little bit of time. A couple of things I wanted to chat with you about before Dan gets here. First of all, welcome everybody, all 62 of you, 83. I'm sure more will come soon. I want to thank our moderators for being here. Let's see who's in the house. Tom is here. Steph is here. Vanity Nutrition is here. Every time I hear Vanity Nutrition, I get hungry. And that's who's in the house right now, as far as I can see. Thank you all for moderating tonight. Really appreciate it. First of all, we are going to be selling prints, not Prince, the artist formerly known as Prince, but prints of this photograph taken by Chris Condian at TWIV 1000. We're going to have a limited edition of 25 prints. It'll be a fundraising effort, and we hope some of you will be interested. I'm not sure what the price point will be yet, but it's not going to be insignificant, let's put it that way, because we want to use it to raise money. We think it's a wonderful print. So limited edition of 25. Look out for an announcement about that. Hope some of you at least will buy one. If you don't, I don't know who would. You're the diehard fans, right? Okay, that's number one. Number two, should I sell bobbleheads? I know you want bobbleheads of everybody, but let's do a test run with a bobblehead of me. Would you buy it? Just let me know in the show notes if you would be interested in buying it or not. A bobblehead doll. All right. Prints, bobbleheads. How do you like Beyond the Noise? Hopefully most of you listened to it and you like it. So I've been reading Paul Offit's Beyond the Noise for a couple of weeks now. Yeah, it's a Substack. It's a short blog post, very short, to the point. He always has good arguments for what he's talking about. He's done some on vaccines. He's done some on testing and so forth. And I was at the train station last week. I said, this would be a good 10 to 12 minute video. And so I emailed him and he said, yeah, I'd love to do it. So we recorded it on Tuesday. Is that right? Was it Tuesday? Yeah, today's Wednesday. And I edited it the same day. I was actually at a symposium at Columbia in the afternoon, and I was sitting there editing it. Not nice. So that I was able to post it last night. And it's gotten a good reception so far. I think it's going to be a new member of the Microbe TV series of videos. It's going to be video only for now. It's only 10 to 12 minutes. I don't think I should make a podcast about it, although give me your thoughts, right? If you want me to make a podcast, I could, but it's kind of short. People say short podcasts, audio only, are annoying. So I think it's well suited for video. And it's in my idea of trying to make more shorter content that's more digestible. And Paul is great. He explains things really well. And I think it's going to be fun. And I'm looking forward to doing more. We're going to record another one in about 2 weeks. I'm going to be away next week at a conference in Switzerland. By the way, no live stream next week because I'll be away. When I get back, we'll record another one. He just posted part 2 of this nasal spray vaccine, Hope or Hype, and we'll do that. And then I want to work back in his posts because he has a lot of other good things to say there as well. So, all right, let's see what people are thinking. Everybody loves Beyond the Noise. Okay. Good to do 1 or 2 short vids. Well, they're going to be weekly or every other week. That would be the idea. Yeah, not 1 or 2 and off. That's not it. Everybody seems to like Beyond the Noise. Not everybody likes bobbleheads. That's fine. I don't blame you. I may not make them at all. We'll just stick with the one that I have. It's fine. No thanks on Bobble. No thanks on Bobble. It's fine. Be honest. No problem. I mean, why would you want a bobble of me anyway? If we had a team bobble, that would be fun, but I don't have a team bobble. Okay, another thing I want to tell you about is the here. By the way, here is where is it? Hang on, let me turn that off for a moment while I get my thing here sorted. Okay, first of all, here is our YouTube channel. Everyone knows all about that, right? Let's get it to fit. Very good. This is our YouTube channel, right? Microbe TV. And then here we have the new Beyond the Noise. Everyone seems to like it. It's Beyond. I made a mistake in the actual video, and Paul didn't correct me till it was over, so I didn't want to redo it. It's Beyond the Noise. That's the name of his website. So going forward, I'll get it right. Anyway, there's number one. Eventually, it'll have its own playlist. But I wanted to show you the one next to it, COVID T-Vax and a Virus from the Blue. This is doing very well. 6,500 views. My barometer of doing well is Daniel. He's got 7.7. He'll get over 10,000 by the time the week is up. So this is doing well. Why is it doing well? Well, I think the picture is probably driving it. I think this Blue Sea with the sailboat. The Tara Oceans Explorer. But I also think COVID T-Vax, right? That's probably part of it. And we worked pretty hard to get that title. We wanted something that had both stories in it and which would be appealing. So I wanted to share with you some of the different titles we had for that episode. So here are our show notes. By the way, we make a Google Doc every week with show notes. So these are all the things we're going to talk about, right? I say turn on the recorders and the stuff we say, well, the papers and letters and so forth, images, so forth. Okay, picks of the week. But at the top here, people fill in their ideas for titles. So, of course, COVID T-Vax and a Virus from the Blue was the last one we came up with, and we like that. But look at these others. Before the Wave on the Sunlit Ocean. Before was the name of this virus, right? Or this Murus virus. I didn't think anybody would get that. Broader boosters and a Virus from the Blue. Not sure broader boosters work. Strange viruses in the sunlit oceans. That was mine because Murus viruses is strange viruses, right? So that's where that comes from. There's another one, a planktonic ancestry for herpes viruses, but maybe people don't care about a planktonic ancestry. Who lives in a capsid under the sea is very cute, but again, I didn't think it would have pull. Eternal boosters in the sunlit sea. Stranger things and stronger boosters. Mind the gap and serve the tea. And I said, can we get T-cell into this somehow? And actually, Kathy came up with COVID T-Vax and a Virus from the Blue. So she abbreviated it. She didn't say COVID T-cell vaccine, right? I think it's perfect. What do you think? Nasal vaccines beyond the nose. That's good. Anyway, that is how we come up with our titles. So these show notes, as I said, they have all the links, PSAs, advertisement for Amy's position job. We have the papers we're going to talk about. So here's our snippet. And then we have, here, Kathy writes a note. Lol, I can't believe we're doing this paper without Jens Kuhn. And some pictures we put. And then we have email, which we didn't get to this time. Then all the way at the bottom, we have our picks of the week. Everyone puts them in there. And then the wrap-up, which you're all used to. Another TWIV is viral, right? There it is. Another TWIV is viral. So that is that, and that's how we come by the titles. Hope you like that little, what do you call it, inside baseball, making the sausage. Okay. Dan will be here in about 20 minutes. And I will wait for questions for Dan. We will get generic here. Lilac blooms have a heavenly scent. I don't know what you were talking about there. Lilac blooms. Coastal New Hampshire. Hey, I was in New Hampshire last week. right? 2 weeks ago, I was in Durham, New Durham, is it? University of New Hampshire. They said it's very close to the ocean. Yeah, it was fun. Not getting there. Markle is from the east end of Long Island. Here's another question. We'll save the Dan questions. Tom says, lilacs in bloom where I am. I see. Claire's from the UK. Brian's from Montreal. Elizabeth from West Virginia. No wonder you don't like the Bobble Doll. West Virginians. Now remember, remember what? What was I going to say? I can't. Don Wilson was on Twiv before. Hello from Pennsylvania. Debunking tonight. Yeah, you get your debunking questions lined up, okay, folks? John is in Minnesota, right? Is MN Minnesota? Yeah. It's bad that I don't know it off the top of my head, right? Memphis, Tennessee is in the house. Mexico. Hello, Israel Ramos. Nice to see you. Questella. 8 o'clock. You bet. Right on the nose. Sarnia, Ontario. Well, I'll be in Quebec in a couple of weeks. Don't know how far you are from there. And let's see. Who else? Dr. Dan has a baby daughter. That's right. Who has to be put to bed. Hi from London. That's in the UK. Greetings from Northeast Ohio. South Jersey, Dayton, Ohio. Someone said last week, I like this stream, but I don't like an hour or two of seeing where everybody's from. You know, it's like 10 minutes. Pueblo, Colorado. I like seeing where people are from. Coxsackie, New York. I'm getting used to that one. The sooner you have John Barry on. John Barry. Barry. Yeah, the great influenza. I have to remember to do it. I always forget. I need an assistant to keep track of stuff for me. Berkeley, California. Some people did want to bobble, but I don't know. There's enough negativity. Beyond the Noises here. I'm glad you like it. Glad you like Beyond the Noise. I knew it would be a hit. Bay Area. Simon's in the Bay Area. That's cool. And also, you should tell me who you want to have next time. Who do you want as a guest? How about Nels Eldy? You want to have Nels Eldy on? I think you already said yes. But if you have some more opinions, Beyond the Noise. Yeah, you hear me say above, but I made a mistake. I don't know why I was saying it above. But I like Beyond. Yep. I hope to make it weekly. Yep. Title was a bit ambiguous. COVID T-Vax? You think that's ambiguous? You didn't pick it up that it was T-cell vaccines? Well, we have to... Kathy Spindler would work if she wants to do it. She's a little shy about live streaming, but I can ask Kathy. Yeah, Kathy and Nels. Sure, we will do that. Good questions here. I'm going to skip them over until Dan comes up. Boulder, Colorado. Oh, so this now, I would have to copy that. My TA this year is from China, and he's probably born here, Chinese parents, but he could write this out on his laptop and translate it. It's so cool. Kathleen is leaving the Hudson Valley soon outside of Syracuse. Need to swing by the incubator first. You sure do. I'm there most times except when I'm traveling. So next week I'm not there all week. Unfortunately, I do enjoy being there, but I also enjoy traveling. It's a toss-up. So for the next 2 months, it's a lot of travel. But then July and August, I'm mostly there. Washington, D.C. area. Venice, California. Miami. It's hot, huh? Yep. Lilacs in my backyard in Portland. Interesting. San Antonio, Texas. El Paso, Texas. We're definitely Dutchess County, New York. The Bears are out. Asheville, North Carolina. You bet. Reno, Nevada, which I visited a number of years ago and did a TWIV. Okay, we got votes for Kathy and Nels on office hours. Yeah, Alan would be good too. Calgary, Alberta. They should do all the TWIV hosts first. Oakland, California. I don't know. Shane Crotty, would he do a live stream? You know, the thing about a live stream is it's a little intimidating for people to take questions live, right? Okay, thank you. That means hello, everyone. That's pretty funny. So let's get that back here. Hello, everyone. That's it. That's the Daniel Griffin greeting, right? I think Shane Crotty would be good if he wants to do it, right? And how about some of the other shows, right? Some of the immune crowd. We had Brienne, but I think Cindy or Steph would be cool. And who else? Neuroscience. Some of those would be cool too. Tim and Vivian would be fun to have on together. I have a good stable of people, right? That I can draw from. The donation that has the lowest overhead to TWIV and return the most. Venmo, PayPal, Google Pay. Well, the lowest overhead is check, right? But of these, I believe Venmo is the lowest overhead. But I could be wrong. Let me know, folks. Let me see. I'll look it up. Mingarelli. Yeah, Rima wants Mingarelli. Which one? It has to be the Angela, because the other would be Chiara would be. Would you guys want Chiara on this to ask her about astrophysics? Tell me. Let's see. What was I going to say here? PayPal. Let's see. Venmo percent taken. What is Venmo? 3%. What about PayPal? PayPal fees. How much does PayPal charge? 3.5% processing for PayPal. Google Pay fees. Google Pay, 2% plus 30 cents per transaction. So Google Checkout, that is. I don't know about Google Pay. That could be a low one. But I don't have a Google Pay, though, unfortunately. Sorry about that. Fort Cavazos, Texas. Dover, New Hampshire. Well, I was in, where is University of New Hampshire? Is where it is in Durham. Just Durham. That's where I was. Maybe it's near you. It was a good visit. Really nice. Pittsburgh. That's cool. Okay, Sean Crotty was great on live stream. Tim Chung, Mingarelli, Cindy, Steph, yeah. We'll bring Daniel Griffin back for sure. And this is the Venmo address up here. Okay, it's at Microbe TV. No dot, just at Microbe TV. So Eddie Holmes is going to be on TWIV from Houston. This just June, so we'll have to wait again. Inez is in England. Yeah, I mean, astrophysics office hours would be fine. Kathy Spindler seemed hesitant. I know why. It has nothing to do with the vaccine, but I don't want to say why because it's personal health information, right? Let me put it another way. How long after you get COVID should you get a COVID vaccine? Okie dokie. Oh, well, Jeff Taubenberger was on TWIV not too long ago. I don't know if he'd come back for a live stream. But, you know, it's different to be on a live stream from TWIV. I totally get that because you folks can have your crack at them, right? Okay, 8:20. Let me see if Dan actually got my link that I sent him today. Dan. Wilson. Bear with me, folks. I haven't gotten any. Thanks. See you tonight. Very good. He got my link. Okay, so he'll be here. Eastern North Carolina. I'm a Eurovision fan. Are you a Eurovision fan? I'm a Croat. Did you see our entry? What's Eurovision? I don't even know what it is. What is it? Oh, it's a song. Oh, right. It's the song contest. That's the one my son likes very much. Did you see our entry? I didn't. I'll have to look at it. I will take a look at it. That's very funny. My son was showing it to me a while ago. And it was pretty entertaining, and you're in it. That's very cool, Inez. I'll take a look at it for sure. Can Fauci come back to TWIV? I think he would, yeah. He would probably come back to, tell us about what happened. Yeah, we can do that. I wouldn't say I'm a Eurovision fan. I just know what it is. I think it's interesting, but I don't watch it religiously. Will I be attending ESCV in Milan? I'm hoping to. Usually they invite me every year, and I would like to go back. And usually we do at least one TWIV, maybe two. So yes, I'd like to. I will write soon to the organizers and ask them or remind them that they should have me on. Siddhartha Mukherjee. That would be funny. Yeah, he's my faculty colleague at Columbia, right? I don't know if he'd do it. Maybe he would. Maybe he wouldn't. We'll see. I've been watching Virology 2023, but the latest slides are from 2021. They're mostly the same. Well, they're not mostly the same. No, I mean, maybe 90%, 85%. It's a Principles of Virology course. So things don't change all that much. But there are differences. For astute viewers, you will see differences. And so 2023 Virology YouTube are all up. The course is over. 25 lectures. They're all there free for everybody to see. Alina says, are they easier than previous years? No, you're just getting better. They're not easier. You took them once and you got better. Now you're taking it again. This is the way to do it, is to take it over and over again, right? So you're just getting good at it. Will I ever do a Virology 201? Yes, I will. So my plan was to do a viruses course, right? Live streamed. I think that's what you mean here, right? A live streamed course on viruses, going through the major families and talking about some of the big players, right? And it's just been a little bit hectic in trying to plan it out because that would take me a long time to develop that course. Because the first course, of course, I've been teaching for 15 years now, and it's based on the textbook, and it's all sorted out more or less. But this would be brand new, so it would probably take a couple of months to develop it. But I'd like to do that. About Barry Sinusi, who discovered HIV. She would be interesting. I don't know. I haven't ever heard her. I haven't heard her speak, so I don't know what her English is like. But I suspect that it might be okay. Yeah, she would be interesting. Absolutely interesting to do. Yes, look at the big brains on me. You bet. You got a good teacher, too, don't you think? But I do think it's mostly on you, for sure. Yes, sir. All right. What else did I want to tell you? Let's see. I touched on all the things. Yeah, the course being over. So now you can spread the word. Let's take a look at that here on our screen share. Right here is Virology 2023, 25 lectures about viruses. There you go. From one, look at the numbers here. This is very interesting. Number one, what's a virus? 17,000 views. This is put up 3 months ago. And then we go to 9,000 and 6,005. 4. It goes down and down with each one. Although I wonder if it goes up again when we get to the pathogenesis. Nope. It's going down and down. Close the player. Let's take a look at them all here. Synthesis of RNA down 2,000, 3,000. Let's see if it goes up with the pathogenesis. No, not really. Pathogenesis are down as well. So pandemics got a little higher than usual. But, yeah, it's, and you can't see it on here, unfortunately. But oh, yeah, there it is. Got a little higher than usual. So that's cool. Big brains. Oh, this is very interesting here. TWIV has made my molecular biology class a lot easier. I'm glad to do that. It's our purpose to help make your science life easier. I often hear expressions here like run a gel and wonder if short videos of lab techniques would be a thing. They would. And if I had a lab still, I would love to do them, but I don't. And so I would have to go to someone's lab, and that would be a little tough, I think. But I suspect you could find such videos on YouTube quite easily, right? All right, let's look. How to pour an agarose gel. Yeah, there are plenty of videos. Preparing an agarose gel. Here, I'm going to share the screen with you again. So there we go. Electrophoresis preparing a 1% agarose gel. Yeah, they're all there. Casting an agarose gel. It's all a matter. Now, of course, they don't have the charisma of Microbe TV, but the facts are there. Will Shingrix work against herpes simplex 1 or 2? No, it won't. The antigens are quite specific for varicella zoster virus. The glycoprotein is quite different, so it won't work, unfortunately. Courses are fantastic, but a lot to take in. I'm a vet. Had to pause multiple times. Yeah, of course. I don't expect you to sit down and watch them all in one show. But you take them in small bits for sure. I mean, they're free and they're viewable whenever you want. So take them in small bits. I understand they're complicated. Can you imagine the undergraduates who are watching these videos? They must find it really complicated too. What happened to the wall of polio? I don't know. I moved out of my office a couple months ago, and I just left it there. So I said, I'm just leaving it here. And I don't know what happened if they took it down. Given the inertia of people, I suspect it's still there, but I haven't gone to visit. No, I haven't gone to visit. A lot of questions for Dan here. I'm skipping over, but I will get to them as soon as Dan gets here. I feel like a VR training lab could be a benefit to aspiring students that may not be near a university or institution. Yeah, it could be, but there's nothing like getting your hands wet, as we say, putting on those gloves and doing things to help you learn. So, you could do a little VR, but and that's virtual reality, of course, not Vincent Racaniello. Oh, a Vincent Racaniello training would be the best, total best training you could ever had. You would love to be trained in a lab by me, because I'm very patient. I'm really patient. I'm going to grab this one. More and more I'm thinking that the way we think about pandemics, when is the next one, is wrong. I think we will be in between pandemics for a long time. I don't think so. What is a long time? I mean, 10 years? No, I think in the next 10 to 20 years we're going to have a flu pandemic. We're due for one. 2009 was the last one, right? One before that was 77. So we're due for one. 13 years plus 9, 20 years. And so 2009, 2029. And we'll still be live streaming, so we can analyze it in real time. Maybe our numbers will go back up, right? That would be cool. Not that our numbers are bad, but numbers meaning that people are interested. And that's really important, I think. All right, Dan, where are you? Not that I can't keep answering questions, but this is Dan's show tonight. We're allowed to go to mask optional soon. First time in over 3 years. Big decision. Quite interesting. In the hospital at Columbia, you don't need masks anymore. At least not general masks. Of course, for certain things you need them. Yes, for sure. You think bird flu, eh? 2026? I don't know. Could be sooner. I just don't know. Hard to predict the future, right? What did Yoda say? Hard to predict the future is. Has TWIV covered viroids? Yeah, T.O. Diener just died. It's unfortunate. They're just naked RNA. They don't code for any proteins. Yeah, we have done some episodes on viroids. In fact, there's a recent one. I'll tell you what it is. TWIV viroid. It was one where they discovered viroids in new environments. Here's a cool one. Here, you're going to love this. TWIV 979, flushing out the viroids. A vast world of viroids that infect a wide range of host species and diverse ecosystems. We used to think they were only infecting plants, and it turns out we just didn't look. They infect all kinds of organisms. So, yeah. And then there's a lecture, of course, in the virology course, which is all about unusual infectious agents. Ever think of a show crossover? Yeah, we do crossovers a lot. But do you mean by crossover having people from one pod go on the other? We've done that also. Nels has been on TWIV, and I think Michael Schmidt was on TWIV once early in the pandemic, talking about how dentists could stay safe from COVID and so forth. Yeah, I like that. I like mixing up the hosts for sure. Mm-hmm. Early in 2020, WHO team agreed to hold samples from all of 2019 blood donations for later testing. Was that done? Yeah, it did happen, and there was no positivity in any of those early samples. No seropositivity, implying that, late 2019 is really when it started, which is consistent with everything else, right? But I don't know about bird flu, Inez. I don't know. How did you and Daniel, you mean Daniel Griffin? Les is in the house. Hi, Les. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Here's Dan. Here we go. So let me cue up this. And Dan, hello, Dan. Assign guest one. There you go, Dan. Hello.
Hey Vincent, how you doing?
Well, everybody's really anticipating you getting here, man. They're really
Oh,
excited.
really?
Put
Sorry, I had to put my daughter down first.
No
Um,
worries. It's fine. We can pass the time without a problem. There's plenty to talk about.
oh, I'm sure. Yeah, everyone usually has questions for you.
Here's one for you. Welcome, Dan. Great to have you join us. Thanks for all you do. Anyway, Dan and I were recording an episode for him this weekend, and I thought, well,
Mhm.
why doesn't Dan join me? And I'm glad you had the flexibility to come do that. So thank you.
Yeah, totally.
Now, here, right up on top from Simon, we have a question. So, how can we debunk the funk when even experts said the wrong things so many times? Waning immunity, kids don't spread COVID, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, it's it's tough. It doesn't. It's not easy when you know people who have what I would consider impossible jobs inevitably say things to the press or in front of cameras that anti-vaxxers can easily take out of context,
Yeah.
and that makes things tough. But we have to just keep doing what we do and trying to do it better. I don't think I have a specific answer, but we just have to keep trying to say what's right and address things that are wrong, no matter where they come from.
Yeah, even Paul Offit said to me yesterday there are at least two people who feel that nasal vaccines are going to block transmission and infection forever. And he said that's just not right, and they should know better, right? Well, one of them's not even a virologist, so that's a problem when experts like the attention, right? They get called all the time. They're in the news, and they kind of like that, and
Hmm.
it's hard to fight that. But yeah, you're right. I think people who do give the right science, like us, we have to just keep at it and
Yeah,
keep going.
yeah. Continue to network with science communicators and
Yeah,
get organized because the anti-vaxxers are organized.
they are, aren't they?
Hmm.
Here's a question from Mike. Do you think skepticism has waned in the past decade? Have you looked at the epistemology of Karl Popper and David Deutsch?
Mm. I, I have not. um, I don't know the work of those people. Um, has skepticism waned? I don't know. I think about this a lot because you know it, we see kind of our bubbles on the internet. Like I go on Twitter and I'm inundated with just the worst garbage you could think of, the worst science takes you could
Mm-hmm.
imagine. But if you go into everyday life, I don't think those beliefs are as common as what Twitter would have us believe. So I don't think I have a grasp on just how common skepticism and critical thinking really are. Um, I don't know. Maybe there are some events that point to it being not very common in recent history, certain elections and certain
Yeah,
the way things have gone. But I don't know. I don't know.
I think skepticism has gotten worse, but that's just in the past 3 years. The pandemic, I think, has exacerbated skepticism.
Hmm.
But yeah, I agree. I don't know for sure. I haven't done any studies.
Right. I don't have any data.
That's what we go by, right? Data.
Hmm.
Elizabeth said, I don't have a question, but a massive thank you to Dan Wilson for all you do.
Very welcome. Appreciate that.
And Susan says, I've been looking forward to seeing you two together. So we were on Twiv. Dan was on Twiv not too long ago. Let's
Hmm.
see. Twiv, and
It
we'll
was
just
960.
960. There
Hmm.
you go. Getting funky with Dan Wilson.
Yep.
And you can hear all about his history.
Yeah, yeah. That was a great. I mean, I think I told some of my friends like, well, I think I crossed another thing off my YouTube bucket list. I'm not sure what's next.
There's plenty. You can come back. Uh, all right, debunking. I'm seeing people blame long COVID on the vaccine. Saw an article in Science that says it's possible in rare cases. So a kernel of truth maybe, but how can we debunk these claims? You haven't done anything about that, have you?
No, I don't think I made any videos about that. Um, let's see. I don't know a ton about this topic. I know that the NIH was looking into the possibility of vaccines exacerbating long COVID. I don't know of any instances where they caused it in the first place,
Yeah.
but I could be wrong there. Um, but yeah, I mean, whenever people say vaccine causes this, um, try to remind them that it's always about risk benefit analysis. So
Yeah.
you can acknowledge, yeah, vaccines do have some negative side effects, as do all medications. Nothing is 100% safe, but if you're going to make a choice, you want to be making the choice that has less risk, right?
Yeah.
And so if you can tell them, like, okay, we agree that you want to take the choice that's less risk. So why would, and you establish that vaccines are, are less risk than an infection, then, you know, uh, they would have to acknowledge that they're choosing the riskier path if they're not choosing vaccination.
For sure. Well, I've just found an article on Science, which is one of these um, anecdotal things. You know, somebody got the vaccine and then she got brain fog and so forth. So they actually did
Mm-hmm.
a small trial, and this was AstraZeneca vaccine.
Mm.
So NIH did a small bit of research, and they found patients with temporal associations between vaccination and faltering health. And Avindra Nath, who is clinical director at NINDS and who I visited a couple of months ago, he's been leading that study. Yeah, he said they're temporal associations, but etiological associations, I don't know. So here we have a case where Avindra Nath says, I'm not sure, and now the conclusion when people read the article is they say there could be a cause there, but that's not right. That's not what he's saying. He says he doesn't know, right? So that's how misinformation spreads, right? Someone says,
Right.
yeah, maybe, and then people take that to mean yes.
Mm-hmm.
But AstraZeneca, um, that's what is the AstraZeneca? Was that the Janssen vaccine, the adenovirus vectored?
Same technology, yeah. Adenovirus.
So it's an infectious vaccine, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But again, it's a very small outcome, as Dan says. You know, you have to do risk benefit analysis. You got edamame there, Dan? Is that what you got?
Yeah, this is my nighttime snack right now.
Edamame's great. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's left over from dinner. What my daughter would need.
Okay, let's find another question. Donnelly is excited for tonight's guest. We have people from all over the place. I went through the locations. Got people all over the U.S., people throughout the world as well.
That's
I
awesome.
think it's pretty cool. Let me take this question from Kang, not necessarily a debunk question, but
Sure.
what are frequently asked questions posed by your students during office hours? Did any questions from students inspire design of an experiment? So in the past, yes. Sometimes I would get questions that inspired experiments. It hasn't happened in a while, and now that I don't have a lab, it doesn't happen anymore. Yes, but what kinds of questions? I have to say, how many questions are going to be on the exam? Is the final cumulative? Those are boring questions, right? They're not very interesting at all. But clarification questions, you know, I don't understand how this retrovirus works, or I don't understand how this is. Many students have good questions, and often we end up having conversations that go beyond the question, right? Because I start talking about my experience, and that's what they're taking the course for, to hear somebody who's been doing virology for 40 years talk about his or her experience. So I would say there's no frequently asked question, but the ones who come ask good questions. Often they want an explanation of the exam that they've just taken. They don't understand their answer, for example, right? But that's the kind of thing I get. Yeah. Okay, let's see here. Without much media attention, UK and EU approved a monovalent recombinant protein COVID vaccine from Sanofi with GSK. It's supposed to be offered along with Pfizer and Moderna to the over 75s.
Yeah, I didn't hear much about that.
So what is this? I presume this is an Omicron spike. Is that right? Do you know?
Let me check.
Monovalent. It could be either. It could be ancestral or Omicron, I guess.
I would guess it's Omicron.
It's supposed to be offered along with the others to the over 75s booster, yeah. Because here they're eliminating the ancestral spike now in the vaccines, right?
Yeah. This page doesn't say. It's got a adjuvant, same technology as the Flublok's influenza vaccine.
Yeah, I think a protein vaccine is good. A lot of people are suspicious of mRNA vaccines, and maybe we'll get them vaccinated with a protein-based vaccine.
Maybe. There is a subset of people who probably would, but, then again, there's been Novavax for a while, so.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm not sure how many people are going to get vaccinated for the first time with a protein vaccine.
Let's see. Patricia says, can we challenge Paul Offit? I'd like to challenge him on what we've learned on vitamin D since Over-Medicated came out. You can challenge him.
What does she
but
want
he's not here, so.
Yeah.
You could put a comment in the first Beyond the Noise episode if you'd like. That would be fine. By the way, I just started a new series with Paul Offit called Beyond the Noise. He's been writing this blog, this Substack called Beyond the Noise, and I said, why don't we make it into a short video? So 10, 12 minutes. Released the first one yesterday, and it's doing well. People seem to like a short format,
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's got information overload.
I saw that one up. It looked cool. I haven't checked it out yet, but I bet it's good.
Yeah, for example, the format length lends itself to sharing with family friends that aren't virus freaks. Yes, I understand that. Mm-hmm. So here, we have 212 people who are virus freaks, I would say, and not everybody is.
Virus freaks.
By the way, folks, hit the like button, please. We have 157 likes out of 200 if you hit it, and we would be very happy. We're happy anyway, but we'll be even more happy.
Mm-hmm.
By definition, can an acute infection be asymptomatic? I think, Luther, you asked that last time, and for sure, absolutely. An acute infection can be symptomatic or asymptomatic. It can also be there can be a pre-symptomatic incubation period, right? And then you become symptomatic. And remember, symptoms are what you feel. Only you can feel a symptom. Nobody else. You have a stomach ache, a headache, that sort of thing. So, the virus is in you. It's reproducing, but you don't feel anything. And yes, an acute infection. Polio, 95% of polio infections are asymptomatic. Many SARS-CoV-2 infections are asymptomatic. So, yeah, that's for sure, Luther. Yep. It's still an acute infection, which means rapid onset and a defined end, It doesn't go on for your life, right? All right. I'm not sure about this, Michael. They're saying 2 shots are required, but will only authorize 1 bivalent for non-vaccinated. Yeah, I noticed that. It's
Right.
weird that they're only authorizing 1. I
Yeah.
don't think that's enough.
I think the assumption is that most people have had an infection already. So if you have an infection and then a vaccine dose, then presumably you'll have good immunity. I think that's the logic there. Whether or not it's the right recommendation, it's for the
Yeah.
policymakers to decide.
Yep. Can you guess at the percentage of people in North America that were infected with SARS-CoV-2 but remained asymptomatic, and the percentage of those that were shedding enough to infect others? Well, I listen. I early in the pandemic, the asymptomatic rate was 20 to 40%. Does that sound right, Dan?
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Here's a page from MedPage, which is not a bad site, right? MedPage.
Yeah.
And they say it's 60% with Omicron. Significant portion of COVID is asymptomatic, potentially as high as 60% according to a modeling study, one of my favorites.
Oh, okay. Well, not great.
I don't know. I think 20 to 40%, but it's a lot, and that's why it spreads effectively in a population, because you don't know you're infected. Now, the percentage of those that were shedding enough to infect others, I don't know. Nobody did infectivity studies. They all did PCR, so it's really hard to know how many people were shedding enough infectious virus. I don't care how much PCR material you're shedding, right? It doesn't matter to me.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, when we do viral titers
Yeah.
at work, we have to do a particle titer, a genome titer, and an infectious titer, and all the time. Once we have the genome titer and we do the infectious titer is at least 2 orders of magnitude lower than the genome titer, because not every virus particle is going to infect.
Yeah.
And sometimes we've seen it as low as 4 times or 4 orders of magnitude lower than the genome titer. So just because you have the genome doesn't mean you know how much infectious virus is there.
Do you think that the ratio of infectious virus to genomes could change, say, from variant to variant?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the thing. A new variant comes out. They do PCR. Say, oh my gosh, there's 10 times more PCR material in Delta. So give me some infectious virus, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, so many factors can influence it.
Yep. So, Dan, you were not trained as a virologist, were you? You're working as a virologist now, but were you? I don't remember. Remind me how you were trained.
No, so I was trained in molecular biology.
Okay.
My graduate project was ribosome biogenesis. So a lot of RNA work, a lot of protein purifications, and a lot of staring at pi-mole structures, trying to figure out how this thing works. And then now I do a lot of work with viruses now, but yeah, wasn't originally trained as a virologist.
So you learned virology on the job, right?
Yeah, I learned learned what I needed to. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I don't know as much as an academic virologist would. So
Well, you know different things, right? You know a lot about what you're working with at any given time, right?
mhm.
Oh, it's SRR. Thank you for your contribution to science communication. We appreciate it. What's the progress on avian flu vaccines? Last I heard was when Scott Hensley was on. He said they're working on a H5N1 vaccine. Maybe Dan knows. You know anything about avian flu vaccines?
Not more than you.
Mm.
Not more than that episode you just mentioned.
Yeah.
That was
I mean,
great.
they are being worked on for sure. I mean, we do have an H5N1 vaccine stockpiled in the U.S., but I don't know if it's a good match for the currently circulating virus. But as Scott
Yeah.
mentioned, it's easy enough to make an mRNA vaccine against whatever is circulating, and they're doing that, and that's what should be done. It should be ready to go in case this becomes an epidemic of some sort, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I keep seeing stories of more and more mammals, wildlife getting infected and turning up dead.
Yep.
And yeah, that's not comforting. But
I
uh,
I would like to have a avian influenza expert on TWIV soon. That's another one of the things I need to do. So I think
yeah,
it's really interesting.
yeah, because I see those stories of mammalian wildlife turning up dead, and
Yeah.
it's not clear to me how common that is. I get the sense that it's unusual for avian flu to infect this many wildlife species and actually kill them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I don't really know. Uh,
I
I just
was
felt,
in. Go ahead.
oh, go
Sorry.
ahead.
I was in New Hampshire a couple of weeks ago, and I was talking to a veterinary microbiologist. I may have mentioned this last week. I don't remember, but never hurts to repeat. And he said they see a lot of high pathogenic avian flu H5N1 in chicken farms in the state. And
Mm,
he said, for example, they had a call from a farm, small farm, less than 100 chickens. They're outside. He said their chickens were getting sick, so he sent someone to go swab them. When they got there, they were all dead. It was all
mm,
H5N1, so it happens really quickly. And he said they have a little pond on the farm, and the wild ducks come and they leave their H5N1 virus there, and the chickens get it.
mm.
So it's really quite bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, we will have an avian flu expert on. Yep. Any updates on the use of poliovirus in treating tumors? I haven't heard anything. No.
Mm.
Um, since they had done some trials in people with glioblastoma, but I haven't heard anything since then. Polio. Let's do a search here. Polio for glioblastoma. Yeah, there's nothing new.
Yeah. I remember rabies virus was also showing promise, but I also haven't heard anything about that in a few years.
Yeah. Here's a review on oncolytic poliovirus for glioma in January 2023. So let's see if they say here what's going on. Methodology, treatment options. It's not virus, that's for sure. Would be nice. Studies and trials. So it's modest efficacy. You don't get a lot of survival extension. Just a few months, really. So
Mm,
it's something that needs to be improved, and I think that's what's going on.
mm.
So they say the use of poliovirus for glioma has had some good outcomes, but we need more work. So
Yeah.
that's where we are as of January.
Yeah. It's tough with those cancers where
Yeah.
you develop a new drug, a new treatment, and you get a few more months. And I like I like Siddhartha Mukherjee's book about cancer,
Mm-hmm.
where he talks about you know just is that a win? Well, I guess it depends on the way you look at it, but first for science, it's a win to get those few more months out of life, and
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. It's better than nothing. Um, Someone just before you got on said we should have Mukherjee on Twiv or even on the live stream. That would be fun to have him
That would be
here.
cool. I haven't
I
heard
think
him speak in a while.
I think people are in general a little suspicious of live streams because they're afraid that anybody could show up and ask
Mm,
nasty questions. But we have great moderators here
yeah.
tonight and always who take care of them, so it's not a problem.
Oh, yeah.
You do a live stream now and then, right?
Every now and then, yeah. If I'm feeling like I can't get the energy together to edit a video for a week, I'm like, I'll do a live stream.
And so people ask you questions about debunking or just anything in general about viruses.
Just about what's going on in the
Yeah.
COVID misinformation space. Yeah, I'll just answer those kinds of questions. Usually, there's always something going
Mm.
on that I haven't made a video about yet,
Yeah.
and so I'll just answer them there.
So Nevitz wants to know if you've done an episode on RFK Jr.
Oh yeah, I have. I've done a few. I read his book. I, I think there were like 6 parts, a 6-part video series I made where I reviewed his book.
Mm-hmm.
It was terrible. It was really bad. A highlight was that in chapter 1 he talks about COVID, and it's like 100-page chapter. It's just like a stream of consciousness. He names a bunch of heroes. He calls them heroes. They're all quacks, but one of them in particular had this clinic where people drove through
Mm-hmm.
a drive-through clinic, and he was giving them shots of hydrogen peroxide, but he was giving them their shots while the patients would drive through. They would pull their pants down and hang their butts out of the car window. I'm not kidding, and get shots of hydrogen peroxide in their butts.
Oh my gosh.
And that was to treat COVID. Wild. Yeah. And he mentioned that in his book, unironically, and said this doctor was a hero. Just crazy. And then what surprised me about his book, RFK Jr.'s book, and mind you, this guy's running for president, and he has like, according to the polls, he has like 20% of the Democrat vote, which is
Oh my gosh.
crazy. But a good chunk of the book was devoted to HIV/AIDS denial.
Mm-hmm.
Denying the idea that HIV causes AIDS. He championed people like Peter Duesberg, and just recycled a bunch of tropes. Do you know who Peter Duesberg is,
Oh
Vincent?
yes. Oh yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about him?
All right, so Peter Duesberg is a elderly retrovirologist at Berkeley. Berkeley, where is he? Duesberg.
Yeah, I think it was Berkeley.
University of Berkeley. That's right. He is now 86, and he had a long career in retrovirology where he's well respected, published a lot of good work, and then with the onset of HIV/AIDS, he starts giving this nonsense that HIV doesn't cause AIDS. It's never been proven, and he, everyone is horrified that he's doing this because all of a sudden he's turned to the dark side, right? And so, I think, if you talk to him, he'll say he's trying to stir up people thinking critically, right? But saying a virus is not causing a disease is not stirring you up to think critically. It's just spewing false information out there. So I lost all respect for him many years ago. He continues to do this. And then a lot of people like RFK will grab onto him and they'll say, look, here's a PhD, a professor at a university saying what I'm telling you. So it must be right, right?
Yeah.
So it's a real problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
is RFK against all vaccines? Is that the thing? None of them are any good?
Oh yeah. He there's not a single vaccine that he supports.
Mm-hmm.
You will hear him say that he's not anti-vaccine, he's pro-safe vaccine. But then you ask him, well, which vaccines are safe? And there's not a single one. I mean, his website will spread misinformation about every single vaccine on the market. He's been against MMR vaccines for a long time. The childhood vaccination schedule, he thinks that childhood vaccinations are responsible for all the chronic disease in America. It's just
Hmm.
he's totally off his rocker. Um,
Hmm. And
yeah,
has he had any vaccines himself?
good question. Well, probably he has had the COVID vaccine because um, when was it? I want to say it was last year. He had a house party.
Mm-hmm.
His wife, who I forget her name, but she's an actress on Curb Your Enthusiasm. Um, she doesn't have any of his anti-vaccine nonsense. And when
Yeah.
they threw a house party, she said everybody needs to be vaccinated. So there was a vaccine mandate at his house party.
Hmm.
And I'm assuming that means that includes him, but I don't really know.
Yeah, I don't understand. How can he be against all vaccines? Because people have lived and been protected against infectious diseases because of vaccines, right? This makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
And so I don't
But
know how anyone would take him seriously at all, right?
well, yeah, I mean he's been doing this for a while and sadly there are many people who take him seriously. But interestingly enough in his campaign so far,
Mm-hmm.
he hasn't really been saying much about vaccines. He's been kind of keeping it quiet, um, probably because his advisors are telling him to not seem so crazy. Um,
Yeah, I mean that would be I would say that would be. So someone says RFK is fully vaccinated. I'm sure he is. I'm sure
yeah,
he
I
is.
don't know, but I
I mean,
wouldn't be surprised.
that's what they need to ask him if he ever gets to a debate, right? Because
Mhm.
if you were running for president and you're completely anti-vaccine, I can't imagine that you could win, right? Although what do I know? I don't know anything about
Yeah, I don't know.
this sort of
I've
thing.
been talking to some people who have been, have also been debunking anti-vaccine stuff for a long time and following RFK Jr.'s nonsense for a long time, and we're saying like, yeah, there's no way he's going to win. But then we say, well, we said the same thing about Trump, didn't we? So like,
Yeah,
okay, well,
yeah.
let's not get too comfortable.
Oh my gosh. So you've done several videos on him, just tackling a few of the things that he says each time. Is that the idea?
Yep, I was walking through the book chapter by chapter, and then I
Yeah.
realized like I can't make like six more videos about just this book. I'm gonna just lump what I haven't covered into one thing and
Yeah.
finish it.
Okay. Where did this debunking RFK comment has floated up here? Actually, I just searched for RFK. When you do live streams, what do you use do you use Ecamm too? Here we go.
Um, I use OBS and
Oh, you
I
use OBS. That's
stream
right.
to YouTube. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess Les says, what do you think about RFK Jr. running for president?
Uh, it's it's concerning. It's very concerning. I mean, he had an announcement to his presidency. I think it was in Boston. His announcement for his campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you look at the pictures, and you could pick out several anti-vaxxers that have been around for years and years who were there. Uh, and this movement they're very organized and they're very good at messaging. Like they're very good at riling people up and appealing to political bases. So,
Mm, yeah.
on paper, I would say he doesn't have a chance, but it is kind of worrying that he is running and he is going to be getting so much publicity, um, and people are going to be reading the garbage that he's put out on his website for many, many
Yeah.
years.
Yeah. Well, you will have to be busy in debunking everything he says if he says
Oh
more on
yeah.
the campaign
Oh
trail.
yeah.
Keep you busy.
Yes, he
Uh,
will.
does do for one work with pandemics? This is a good comment. I appreciate this. Whenever I hear someone say do for one, I think of the gambler at the slots. Will the pandemic actually become more and more likely as time passes? So the reason we say do for one is because the influenza pandemics happen every so many years, right? So we have 1918, then we have a long gap, 1968. Then we have 57. So 1918, 57. Then 68 is 11 years. Then 68 to 77, 77, 2009. So, that's what they mean by do for one. This is our first coronavirus pandemic. So we don't have any establishing facts, right? We can't say we're due for another corona pandemic. But the flu is what drives that. And because when I went to grad school, they said every 20 to 30 years there's a flu pandemic. And so that's why we do that.
Hmm.
But it is kind of weird to say that. And I understand why people don't like it. So that's why I think how about we say the next pandemic will be an influenza pandemic? It is, and it is speculating, but they happen regularly enough that we'll have one. And there's so many influenza viruses in birds, right? They're
Hmm.
all there. They're the hemagglutinins, many of them, neuraminidase, they're all in birds. So that's where they reassort and make new strains.
Yeah. Yeah, it's impossible to predict when a pandemic's going to come, just like it's impossible to predict earthquakes. But you know,
Yeah.
you can. It's pretty certain that they're going to happen. You just don't
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
exactly when.
Well, here in Brazil, the HVN2 outbreak, 2021, behaved much. Oh, okay. The outbreak became much like how a flu pandemic would behave here. It was at least as much of a disaster as the first Omicron wave. Yeah, well, epidemics can be disasters if they're not handled well, right? And so it's not a pandemic because it's not global, but I can understand that would be an issue. Yeah, I didn't realize that it was so bad. Sorry to hear that.
Mm.
Is there an index to topics on TWIV? No, there isn't. Unfortunately, I'm sorry. There is a search thing. Let me show you microbe.tv here. I'm going to share my screen.
Yeah, the search
So,
thing is pretty good.
so here, if we go to a TWIV, where is it? Where's the search box? Not even here. It's not. I guess it's in the main show. So if you go to shows and then go down to TWIV, here, search. Let's search for Dan Wilson, okay? And let's see how that handles it. There you go.
Yep.
And actually, a couple come up, and probably people are talking about you,
Oh yeah, the letters
letters, or
847. I don't know what.
I don't know why this one came up. This is E.O. Wilson. So it picks up a partial
There you
hit,
go.
I guess,
Yeah.
So that's all we have in terms of an index. We just don't have an index. That would be a cool project for somebody to do. But, it's not high on my list, but I did get someone to make an index for my blog, Virology blog, and he automated it, but I never posted it. So it's not much use if you don't post it.
Mm.
But it's tough, right? Yeah, and you can
Yeah.
look online. You can just do a Google search and include TWIV. That's what I usually do. If we go to Google and do TWIV, Dan Wilson, you'll get the same thing that I just got there. So
Yeah. And the search thing on the website, uh, usually if it's a topic that's mentioned in the episode, there's something in the show notes or
yeah,
um, something like that that'll bring it up. Um, it's very rarely I've had to like actually go through if I'm thinking of something I heard on Twiv and I want to go back and listen to it and look for the reference or whatever.
yeah,
Um, very rarely do I have to like click on multiple episodes before I find what I want.
All right, here's one from Doreen. Ho Dan, hello Dan, love your content and vibe.
I appreciate that, Doreen. Thank you.
Greetings, Dan from Toledo. Come out to the University of Toledo sometime.
Oh, cool. Yeah, Toledo. Greetings to you too. Um, let's see. Last time I was in Ohio, I think I was at a conference at Case Western, which was before the pandemic, obviously.
Hmm.
Um, I've liked visiting Ohio. Cleveland's cool. I've got family in Columbus, but I'm all the way on the east side of Pennsylvania, so I don't know when I'm going to be going to Ohio again.
What funk riles each of you the most?
Hmm. Uh, let's see. I mean, a lot of things come to mind, honestly. But I guess I'll say one of the more annoying things that's been getting to me lately is this talking point that anti-vaxxers have, where they say, "What about Africa?" Because Africa is one of the least
Hmm.
vaccinated countries or vaccinated continents in the world um, when it comes to COVID, and people say like, "Oh, look at how well Africa did against COVID," and it's so annoying. I say, do you realize Africa is made up of several countries? Now, do you know what those countries did in response to COVID? No. Well, let me tell you, South Africa closed their borders for several months. My dad couldn't even go to visit his family. Um, it, and countries like Ghana, you could be jailed for not wearing a mask, like because African people are no strangers to infectious disease. They deal with parasites, they deal with viruses, they deal with bacteria all the time. So a new virus comes around, they don't want anything to do with it. They reacted to it. Not every country, but many did. In addition, do you think that most of those countries have good reporting, good health infrastructure to be able to accurately test and report? No, many don't. Many don't even report excess deaths. So how do we know how well they actually did? So it's just very annoying when people say, "What about Africa?" They talk about a continent they know nothing about, never visited, and they just lump it all together and use it for their talking point. That really bothers me.
Hmm. I think what bugs me is when people say that vaccines cause more damage than the disease they're designed to protect. And people
Yeah.
buy it, right?
Hmm.
Without thinking about it, without doing any critical thinking. And there, and a lot of people say, "Oh, the VAERS database is full of all kinds of things that happen to people." Well, that's not quite right. These are everything that ever happens whenever you have gotten a vaccine. If you fell and broke your leg, you could put it in there, and it would eventually be looked at and thrown away as not being a vaccine associated side effect. But
Hmm.
people misuse the database to their advantages. I'm sure you've seen that happen all the time, right?
Oh yeah, it's making the rounds right now. There's a graph that's circulating online comparing the rates of death reports to VAERS versus doses given for
Mm.
vaccines. And of course, the bar for COVID is much higher than other
Yeah.
vaccines, but people don't realize that there were several factors affecting that. And one really important one is that COVID vaccines were rolled out under an EUA, excuse me, an emergency use authorization, which means that doctors are required to report um, report events following
Hmm.
the vaccine because they want the post market surveillance to be really tight, and that doesn't usually happen with other vaccines to that degree.
Yeah.
So combine that with the fact that the most vulnerable members of the population are the ones getting the vaccine first, people who are very elderly, very vulnerable, most likely to die of any cause on any given day. you're going to get a lot of deaths coinciding with the first few days after vaccination, and that's going to get
Yeah.
reported. And that all gets analyzed by people whose job it is to monitor those uh, monitoring systems for safety signals. And study after study of those surveillance systems has shown that there were no unusual rates of deaths
Yep.
following the vaccines. So, but people share those graphs and they go
Sure.
viral. People don't check.
I mean, the EUA itself has been attacked by people who say, oh, it's not a licensed vaccine. Why are we using an unsafe vaccine, right? And so,
Yeah,
they don't
yeah.
understand. We have an emergency. We need to have a mechanism for getting vaccines to save lives, right? And that's the mechanism. It doesn't mean that it's unsafe. It was tested in a huge clinical trial by multiple
Mhm.
companies, right? And so
Yep.
that's one thing that people always bring up, this EUA.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
what
and I think a lot of people don't realize that really there are a few differences between an EUA track and a normal track, but really the biggest difference is just that the manufacturing of the product happens
Yeah.
while the clinical trial is going on. All the clinical trial steps, most of them are exactly the same.
Yeah.
You can't really say that there are corners cut or steps skipped. Um, but that's the big thing about an EUA, because usually what happens is they get a drug approved and then the drug company goes forward with manufacturing, which is a whole other
Hmm.
thing. But with an EUA, that stuff is done side by side so that if that drug gets approved, it's ready to go.
Of course, another issue, this pandemic, we had a lot of new kinds of vaccines that hadn't been used before, at least to the extent that we use them, mRNA vaccines, vectored vaccines of different kinds. And so people say, these are new, they're not tested enough, and I don't want to take them. That's why I said before, give them a protein-based vaccine. That's more traditional. And if you have a problem with that, so then why don't you want to take that one too?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Pete says Karl Popper is hard. So that's one of the guys who was mentioned to you about skepticism earlier. So Pete says Karl Popper is hard. I prefer T.S. Kuhn's Structure of Scientific Revolutions. Yes, that is
Oh,
a very good book. Have you read that one, Dan?
I have it on my shelf. I haven't read it in a long time. I
It's good.
would have to reread it if I wanted to talk about it.
Yeah. Steph says experts talking nonsense about COVID under the Trump administration folded under intense pressure from him. Well, everyone folded. Told people not to tell the truth, right? Deborah Birx. Is that the one I'm thinking of? Or the lady early on was at the press conferences saying how bad it would be, and she was basically silenced, right, by the administration.
Uh, I'm not sure who that was. Could have been Deborah Burks.
Let's see if I can find it. Actually, our audience will get it. Yeah,
But
maybe
yeah,
it was Birx.
it was very politicized.
I gave a talk yesterday to a group of infectious disease physicians and residents and fellows at Columbia, and the title of my talk was, "Are we ready for the next pandemic?" And at the end, I said no, but you will have to go out there and combat. The problem is when public health and science gets wrapped up in politics, then they all suffer. And so you
Hmm.
have to try and get above that. That's the problem. David says, our food bank has a policy that only vaccinated people can work. I think this should be continued based on studies that show a fourfold higher risk of infection in non-vaccinated people. Well, a lot of vaccine mandates are being dropped now. And as Dan said earlier, the assumption is that many people have been infected, right? So that is part of it. But I do think you should. This meeting I went to yesterday, I had to show proof of vaccination. I think it's fine still. I don't see why you'd lift it. We don't test people to see if they've been infected. And if we did, it wouldn't be very useful because I don't know what antibody titers would mean anyway. So What do you think, Dan? Should we still have vaccine mandates?
I think it's complicated. I mean, I think, some people say that they wonder if vaccine mandates are going to create a backlash and then create more vaccine hesitancy. I know that before the pandemic, Peter Hotez did a really great study on vaccine mandates in the United States and basically showed that states that have religious or philosophical exemptions for vaccine mandates in order for kids to go to public school. That's what the mandate was for, is just to go to things like public school. Those states that allowed those exemptions had much lower vaccination rates and were more likely to experience measles outbreaks. So based on those data, I would have said, yes, we need vaccine mandates. In the context of the COVID pandemic, I would want to see data showing that a mandate actually was good for vaccine uptake.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there is data for that. So I think it's complicated. But in the case of a food bank, I mean, it sounds like a good idea to have people vaccinated. Just make it a little bit less likely that you're going to have an outbreak and spread it to people who are needy. I mean, that I think that they don't want to get sick either. So
Yeah.
seems like a good idea to me.
I was reading somewhere where someone, I can't remember where it was, they said, a lot of people were on the fence about the vaccine, and then mandating it said, nope, not doing it now. You make me do it, I'm not going to do it. But maybe I would have chosen to if you hadn't,
Right. Yeah. I hear stories both ways where people are like, oh, well, I guess I'll get it now that it's mandated. Or they're like, nope, I'm not getting it now that it's mandated. So I don't know what the real effect of a mandate had on actual uptake.
Yeah. I was just thinking about the 2009 flu pandemic, whether vaccination was mandated at the time. I know it was for health care employees and so forth. Health workers had to do it, but I don't know if it was broadly required. I don't remember. I have the sensation that it wasn't. If anyone remembers, please let us know.
2009. I feel like it was just highly encouraged.
That's what I think.
But I
also.
could be wrong. I don't remember any mandates.
Vanity Nutrition says Twitter's value is in who you follow. Yes, it is. But other people can sneak in and make it unpleasant. So
yeah,
I used. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say my problem on Twitter is the people I follow are all scientists or science communicators or something like that. But I'll stop and read tweets that from people who are spreading misinformation because I want to see what they're saying so that I can be aware of it. And then that's what the algorithm shows me. It shows me all that stuff. So.
Questella says, my hobby is blocking people on Twitter. Okay. I use Twitter to publicize our podcasts. I rarely go and engage, although this week I put a post up saying I'm asking CDC to release the genome sequences of polioviruses from kids who got NOPV2 and were paralyzed. I want to see what they look like. Scientists need to look at this, so release it. Don't hide it. I don't know what the problem is there. Whenever I do something like that, I get more followers because people like when you're being contrary to a certain extent.
Right.
Thank you, Vincent, for all you do for truth in science. Close friend of mine doesn't believe irises exist. So irises meaning Viruses. See, the iris is something in the 5' non-coding region of poliovirus. So that's, yeah, viruses do exist. And actually, I have a guy following me on Instagram who says viruses. It's never been proven that viruses exist. And you can't really engage someone like that. Um,
Yeah.
so I didn't respond, but I said, you're really wasting your time because there's so much evidence for this. And I felt like saying, if they don't exist, I've spent 40 years of my career working on something that doesn't exist, which would be very
Yeah.
frustrating. And which then he would say, well, you have.
Right. Yeah. They'll say you don't know what you're talking about. But yeah, those people are interesting. I encountered them. I became aware of them for the first time during the pandemic. And I thought, wow, that is so bizarre. I should make a video about it.
Yeah.
And then they've come up a few times in the history of my channel. Um, and I think the last time, yeah, the last one I did was I actually, you'll like this, Vincent. I had one live on my channel. One of them agreed to talk to me live about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the highlight was um, I was trying to tell this person about um, cryo-EM and how you can see proteins.
Mm-hmm.
You can see amino acid side chains if it's high enough resolution. And I was showing her this structure of a virus. It was a structure of SARS-CoV-2 spike protein. And I was explaining, okay, so we see this protein. We can see the amino acid side chains. We see that the sequence of the amino acids match the prediction of the genome, what we would expect. So where does this protein come from? Of course, she wouldn't answer. And then I just ask her, I'm like, do you know how proteins are made? And she says, I don't need to know how proteins are made. I'm not a chemist. I say, okay, well, I think that's as far as we're going to get then.
Yeah, it's hard. It's very hard.
Yeah.
You go up against the wall very rapidly because there's no
Yeah.
base of knowledge for, you and I can have a conversation about a lot of things because we both have training in this area. But if someone has nothing, then you really have to reduce it to a level that's not useful anymore, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But the reason I did that was, I think that in that case, I was like, okay, I'll have this talk with this one person, and I'll just do it for the purpose of showing that these people really don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Because I thought, okay, if there's someone out there who is just hearing about this idea, this community of people who think that viruses don't exist,
Yeah.
and they start getting sucked in a little bit, and they start Googling things, looking for content, like virus denial related content, maybe they'll come across that video of me talking to this person, and they'll realize before they get too sucked in that, oh, this is all nonsense. I should not believe this. That's my hope. And it was entertainment, I guess, for some people. But
Yeah.
that's my objective in talking to those people. I don't really think I'm going to change their minds. If that was my goal, it would definitely be a waste of time. But
Sure.
yeah, that was my logic there.
Nevitz says, it sounds similar to the lab leak theory, kernel of truth. Yet there's no real evidence versus wet market origin where we are many connections between the virus and wild animals sold at the market. Yeah, the kernel of truth is a tough one because it sounds like there's something there, but we just don't know what it is. But in fact, there's nothing. Yeah, and I think the origin story is a good example of that. I don't use kernel of truth at all. I don't like it.
Mm.
Jeff says, in my opinion, skepticism requires an understanding of the subject. Anti-vaxxers don't seem to have an understanding as to what vaccines do. So can they be considered skeptics? What do you think? That's an interesting point, right?
Yeah, I think there's a difference between being skeptical and just kind of already having an opinion formed.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty easy to tell when someone comes into a conversation. I think it's easy to tell, and they are genuinely asking questions, like they're genuinely curious, versus they already have a belief and they're asking you questions in order to reaffirm their beliefs or just talk about their beliefs.
Yeah. Someone asked Rich Condit last week, how do you know viruses exist? He said, we have pictures of them. That's a good response. I like that. Right? Two Formax says, thanks for addressing my question. Reason I asked, long COVID support groups now full of people who worry their long COVID symptoms are from vaccines. Long-term people try to dissuade them, but it's hard to sway. Yeah, it's too bad. They're not,
Yeah.
for the most part.
Yeah, it's tough when people are suffering and they think that the vaccine caused it. Um, because you can't really argue with them about it. What are you going to tell them, that you're not suffering? No, you
Yeah.
can't say that.
No.
But you know, uh, whenever I encounter someone like that, I just try to say, look, I really am sorry that you're suffering, and I hope that you get the help that you need. I hope your doctors are listening to you. But I can't argue with you whether or not it was caused by the vaccine.
Right. What was one here? Do parasites get viruses? Is there a virus that attacks coexists with a tapeworm? Yeah, parasites get viruses for sure. We've talked about some of them on TWIP. I don't know about tapeworms, but I think everything has a virus. You just haven't looked hard enough if you don't know it yet. But they're successful systems, and as Dixon says, successful systems attract parasites, whether it be biological or financial. If you have a lot of money, you're going to attract parasites. That's how it goes.
Yep.
Dan, your wiki page says you got into some 9/11 conspiracies. Curious to hear some examples.
Oh, yeah. Yep. I've talked about that on a couple of podcasts I've been on. Yeah, when I was younger, I got sucked into the 9/11 conspiracy world. You know, the whole idea is that the Twin Towers were a controlled demolition and stuff. I fell for it because those conspiracy documentaries are very attractive in the way they present things.
Yeah.
And if you don't know any better, it's easy to just get sucked right in and think that you're being taught something that is, exclusive and exciting. But you come out of it eventually if you are honest in your um, attempts to learn what's going on. And for me, it happened over time. I got out of it thanks to some really great teachers, thanks to some really challenging conversations, and just continuing my journey as a scientist.
John wants to know, have you noticed a drop in the need to debunk flat Earth or moon landing stuff since SARS-CoV-2? I feel it's taking bandwidth from that camp, or am I just imagining things?
I've noticed that some a lot of some anti-vaxxers are showing their flat Earth colors. Stu Peters, the guy who produced that Died Suddenly documentary, which was terrible, he's a flat earther, apparently. So, yikes.
Trish says, thank you, Dan. You do a wonderful service. I hope you and Vincent can keep providing good science info. Well, we'll try.
Yeah, we'll keep trying.
Bad Cat says, I got COVID at the end of January, still struggling. Low BP, low oxygen, dizzy headaches, 5 shots, no bad effects. Question, research suggests vaccine post-COVID helps. Your thoughts? Daniel has talked about this, and I don't think we have an answer to that. There has been suggestion, but the other is whether Paxlovid makes a difference, and that's being tested too. So I think that we don't know is the answer, Bad Cat, yet. Let's see. The people who blame the vaccine for long COVID say it's because they believe the mRNA doesn't go away and causes the issue.
Oh. Yeah, it goes away. It goes away pretty quickly. And the ways that some people will try to get you to believe otherwise is, well, Robert Malone will show you a study. I don't know if you guys reviewed it on Twiv. It was a Cell paper. Who was on it? I don't remember the names of the people who were on it, but essentially what they were doing was they were looking at germinal centers, center responses of in response to vaccination and infection.
Mm-hmm.
And one of their findings was that in vaccinated patients, months after vaccination, they were able to find trace amounts of mRNA in the germinal centers using a fish assay. And so that is a piece of evidence that some people will use to say, look, the mRNA doesn't degrade, but your cells, your immune cells, taking something up, taking it to a germinal center and holding it there is different from it just staying in your body and producing protein. It wasn't even demonstrated that mRNA is replication competent. It's a very dishonest representation of the data.
John, thank you for your contribution to science communication. You can contribute here. There's a super chat button, but you can also go to Venmo and contribute there. So, John, thank you very much. We appreciate that. Rena says, why physicians have used hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin while it's known that coronavirus has multiple ways to enter the cell? Well, you could explain the science behind it all you want, but they're not going to listen. They'll hear their friends who say, or their colleagues say, yeah, I treat everyone with hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, and so they'll just do it. And I can't tell you how many. I was talking to an infectious disease physician yesterday, and she said, some of my colleagues believe in Paxlovid rebound. And she said, it's not a thing. It's an inflammatory thing that's after the acute phase. She got it. But she said some of her colleagues who are infectious disease doctors still think it is because they read something that says it is and they don't look into it. They don't read more. They don't do critical thinking, which is really a lot of work, right?
Yeah. Yeah, Vincent, it was really tough because I ended up going on Dr. Drew's show.
Yeah.
He invited me on after. Well, what happened was he had RFK Jr. as a guest, and so I made a video about that. And so he said, "Hey, how about you come on and we'll talk about that episode?" And I hadn't known that Dr. Drew had platformed pretty much only anti-vaxxers for the past for months before I went on. And one of the things that he asked me about was Paxlovid rebound. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, it's not Paxlovid rebound. I explained it to him. And his response was, I don't know. It just seems different, this rebound. It seems different from what we saw when it was just COVID. And I said, well, how? What are you basing this on? And he just says, well, my clinical experience, the literature usually catches up to it. I'm like, what are you talking about? The literature is already done. There's no Paxlovid rebound. And he just wouldn't listen. And it was really irritating. And he still doesn't listen. So.
Well, kudos for you for doing that.
I wouldn't do it again. I wouldn't help I wouldn't help out someone like that's platform anymore. I've learned that lesson.
How do you measure infectious titer? Well, you could do a plaque assay. Dan, how do you measure infectious titer? Plaque assays?
We do TCID50 since our virus doesn't form plaques.
Plaque.
Yeah. So
Yeah. So
essentially,
you go ahead,
uh,
explain it. Yeah.
okay, I'll explain. With a TCID50, essentially what you do is you first obtain a genome titer, so you know what you're starting with, how much virus you're starting with, and then you infect cells. You let them grow up, let the virus replicate. At the end of the incubation, which is a few days, you extract virus from the cells and you do a qPCR over a serial dilution of virus uh, that you've infected cells with. And at the end of that qPCR, you use those results to back calculate how much virus replicated during the time of the incubation and um, how much virus actually infected the cells to begin
Right.
with. And that's your infectious titer.
And then she asks, "How do you need type 2 pneumocytes to do SARS-CoV-2?" No, you don't need pneumocytes to do a plaque assay or a TCID50. You can use other cell types. You can use Keiko cells or Vero cells. I mean, they're not the
Mm-hmm.
biologically relevant cells, but they'll give you a virus titer, and I think that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Elena says, 1, grateful for Dan's hard work. 2, so super grateful for Vincent and Twix for everything. I'm a biologist, but never imagined I would start loving viruses, and here I am. Well, welcome. Well, you've been here a long time. I recognize you, but thank you for saying that. If an American gets their first vaccine with a bivalent mRNA vaccine, do they get a certificate saying they're fully vaccinated for the purposes of a cruise? You get a card, a vaccine card, that will
Mm-hmm.
have it on it, and then that fulfills the fully vaccinated definition by the CDC. So you should bring a picture of that or the actual card with you in case they ask for it.
Mm-hmm.
The meeting I went to yesterday, they just wanted me to upload a photograph of the vaccine card, which
Mm-hmm.
I did. Might there be a place for a short-lived nasal vaccine that would provide mucosal antibody response for a few weeks? Might it be useful to lower R at critical points? Well, the intramuscular vaccines do that, right? Because the antibody gets into the nasal mucosa, and that's how they inhibit spread throughout the nasopharynx. But
Mm-hmm.
would a nasal vaccine do a better job? I don't know. It might. But, infection is a nasal vaccine, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't do such a good job. So I don't know. Well, Biden's administration is spending $5 billion on a nasal vaccine. What is it called? What's the name of the project, Dan? Do you remember the name of it?
Oh, no, I don't.
Next step or something? Let's see. Biden 5 billion COVID plan. What is it called? Oh, come on. It's just Project Next Gen. Here you go.
Okay.
$5 billion. So here's the
Yeah.
thing, Steve. Flu mist doesn't really do any better than intramuscular flu vaccine at impeding transmission. So I'm not sure that this would work, but who knows? Dan, this is for you. What are your thoughts on the evolution of the ribosome? Do you think proto-ribosomes looked radically
Mm-hmm.
different?
Oh, yeah. I mean, oh, that's so cool. I mean, ribosomes had to have been one of the earliest. They had to have been part of the earliest cells. So imagining what they looked like back then, it was probably a pretty inefficient system made mostly of RNA and very few protein, if any, because the catalytic site of the ribosome is all RNA.
Mm-hmm.
So, it could have been just RNA in the beginning, acting as an inefficient ribosome, maybe an inefficient and not very stable ribosome, because the ribosomal proteins, their us- their functions are all just stabilizing the RNA structure introducing regulatory components, things like that. None of the ribosomal proteins really have catalytic activity. So, yeah,
Yeah,
they
that's right.
probably looked very different.
RNA world. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Elena says, no, not Elena. This one. We should have bird flu vaccine for animals, not just people. Actually, there are flu vaccines for birds. There are even H5N1 vaccines for birds, so they're available. It depends on the country, of course, right? Here's a serology study published in JAMA Reviewed on TWIV indicated 56% of people are unaware of their COVID infection. So as high as 60%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. Does a chlorinated swimming pool inactivate avian influenza virus? It should if it's got the right amount of chlorine, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah,
the thing.
they're envelope viruses, right? So they'd
Yeah,
be
should
they'd
be.
be more fragile.
Yep. Um, if you don't have the right amount of chlorine, often you get pink eye because the adenovirus can cause pink eye infections, and if it's not properly chlorinated, you get them transmitted from person to person. Yeah.
Mm.
Nora wants to know if you're going to be doing any more videos on RFK. It shocked me to see a poll where we had nearly 20% of favorable. We need to break through the Kennedy mystique.
Yeah, yeah. I'm definitely going to be. I don't know what yet, but I'm going to be doing more videos on RFK Jr. I'm
Yeah.
sure. I don't. I mean, like I said earlier, he's hiding a lot of his anti-vaccine views so far. I
Yeah.
think in an attempt to look reasonable, and so I think that he's accomplishing that. He's accomplishing looking reasonable to at least some voters. Um,
Mm.
but I don't think that'll last. I really don't. I really hope at least.
Dan, any favorite video you've made in the past few months?
Oh, a favorite of my videos.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever been asked that. I don't know. Let me see. Uh, uh, okay. Oh, I made a video. I made a video last month with Dr. Vicky Mail. That was the first guest that I've had on my channel outside of like a debate setting.
Oh,
Vicky
cool.
Mail, for those who,
I know
what's that?
Vicky. I know Vicky.
Yeah, she's great. She
Came to visit
is.
the incubator last year. She's a
She
big
did.
fan of TWIV. Yeah.
Oh wow, awesome.
You said, what was her name? Vicky Mayo? Yeah. She's a New York City physician, right?
Oh no, you might be thinking of someone else.
Okay. Okay.
Vicky Mail. She's an immunologist in the
Okay.
UK.
All right. So Vicky
Um,
Mayo that I'm thinking of is an internist in New York City who came to visit the incubator. I thought it was the same person.
okay. Vicky Male.
Okay.
Um, yeah, she debunks a lot of um, pregnancy related
Mm-hmm.
COVID vaccine myths.
That's cool.
So she's really great.
Dan, is it possible to debunk without being accused of being pedantic?
No, no, you. It comes with the role. You have to be a little pedantic to debunk. I think.
Yeah, for sure. Elena, thank you so much for your support of science communication. We really appreciate it. I'm wondering to what degree circadian rhythm affects viral replication. It does. There are people who study this. In fact, at Columbia, Mimi Hirashu does that in using fruit flies as a model and worms, I think. But yeah, there are circadian effects. Of course, you never know if what you find in an experimental animal applies to people, but for sure, I always wanted to have her on. So thanks for
Yeah,
reminding me.
that's interesting. How does that work? Do host factors that are under circadian control
Yeah, it must
act
be right.
as
Yeah,
transcription factors,
or
like,
even defense proteins, right? They could be under circadian cycles. But yeah,
um,
anything that's regulating replication in some way, right?
yeah,
Um, Here's the and Penlick says RFK's 501c3 Children's Health Defense also supports Andrew Wakefield. Wonderful.
yep, that's true. Yep.
I
I'm telling you, these guys are all working together, and it's their job. They make it their job to spread this misinformation.
yeah.
Meanwhile, we have to just take free time to try and educate.
So I don't know where this quote comes from. Frogster, I'm fiercely pro-vaccine. I had all my children vaccinated. I believe vaccines have saved millions of lives. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., one of the world's most notorious anti-vaxxers. So he says this, right? But he doesn't actually
Huh. Let me
publicize
see.
that.
I haven't heard that one before. I
Yeah.
wouldn't be surprised if he said that, but let me search.
Hmm. I lost this comment. All right. Let's continue here. We should wrap it up soon, but there were a couple of things I wanted to touch on. Yes, Deborah Birx, Birx. You've got it right. She's the one who resigned. Yeah.
Mm.
I was a flat earth denialist. I didn't believe that people really believe the earth is flat. I was amazed to find people denying germ theory. Yep, they'll deny everything.
Yep.
Oh, this is interesting. Foster says all good propaganda contains a kernel of truth. That's how it works. I learned this from Noam Chomsky a long time ago. That's a good point. I really like that.
Yeah.
Okay, Matthew makes a good point. I believe viruses exist. My wife studies them, but a picture does not link an object to a function, so it's nonsensical for virologists to laugh as if that's open and shut evidence. Okay. I will not laugh if you don't call me nonsensical, okay? I understand what you're saying, because you have to understand, we are so imbued with viruses that for someone to say they don't exist just makes us laugh, right? But yeah, we can give better evidence than a picture, because I agree that a picture of a particle may not tell the whole story, right?
Hmm. Yeah. But the point is, it's not just any picture. It's a picture that shows a very specific protein, and the protein can only come from one place, and that's
Yeah.
a corresponding gene. And the next logical question is, well, where's that gene? Is it in the human genome? No.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it part of any bacterial genome in the human body that lives in the body? No. Well, where does it come from? Oh, well, it's got to be a virus. And we can actually demonstrate that by, actually sequencing the viral genome and showing that it does produce that protein. Um, just so you know, this Matthew Crawford guy, he is someone who I recognize his name. He thinks that COVID PCR tests are mostly false positives.
That's not true.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, Matthew. Have you seen this pro-vaccine documentary, Virulent: The Vaccine War? I haven't seen that.
I haven't either. David Gorski was involved in it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that it had a select showing. I don't know if it's up for anybody to see, but I haven't seen it.
About Dr. Drew, also John Thompson. People see that they can get rich, and sadly, it seems to corrupt their ethics. Yeah, Thompson, the guy here on YouTube, has gotten very wealthy. You made a video. You made a video about him, right? John Campbell.
Oh, Campbell.
I
Yeah.
think that's what he probably means there, right?
Okay. Yeah, Campbell is. Yeah, I've made a couple videos about him. But Dr. Susan Oliver, also on YouTube, she makes a lot of videos about him
Yeah.
because she used to be on his channel until
Yeah.
she started expressing concerns that he
Right.
was getting things wrong, and then he never talked to her again.
Oh boy. Ian writes, oh, thank you for your support, Ian, of Science Communication, about the nasal vaccine. How about a non-parenteral administration? So that's a number of people have suggested that maybe kids would prefer to have a nasal vaccine than a needle. Maybe, if that's a motivation, I don't think that's a bad idea, as long as it
Yeah,
worked.
I actually like that.
Yeah.
I mean, when I take my daughter to get her vaccines, you know, I debunk all this anti-vaccine stuff all the time. So when I take my daughter to get her vaccines, it's in the back of my head, and it's not fun. It's not fun to watch her get poked, and then she cries. And 10 minutes later, she's fine. She's
Yeah.
perfectly fine.
It's
But
true.
it's
Maybe
it's not fun.
it's overrated. I don't know.
It's not
So,
fun to watch them
Tom,
like that.
our moderator, Tom, says the RFK Jr. quote might be a troll slipping through. He's not fiercely pro-vaccine. Okay,
Oh,
I'm sorry.
he's very much not. But I wouldn't be surprised if he said that to
Yeah.
try and seem
Yeah.
pro-vaccine.
Vanity says, remember when spelling potato wrong cost you an election? What happened? Oh my gosh, that's so good. I really like that.
Yeah.
Dr.
Yeah.
Tanya, thank you so much for your support of science communication. Really appreciate that. Siddhartha, thank you for your support. Really, really like it. Tom says, just so, beat pedantic. Dan Wilson, articulate, patient, thorough, and engaging. There you go. You got fans here, man. It's good.
Oh, appreciate that. Thank you.
And there was one more comment I wanted to play here. Let's see if I can find it. Okay, this is great. This will be. And there's Matthew Crawford again. I don't know if you'll like this,
Yeah.
but he says, as a professional statistician, I'd like to point out that statistics is never used to prove anything by definition, right? It's to give a probability, right?
Right.
That's correct.
That is correct. Yep.
All right, Dan, I'm going to wrap this up. I'm going to thank all of our moderators tonight. Tom and Les and Vanity and Steph. And early on, who else was here early on? Les was here. I already mentioned Les. I don't want to miss anyone, so my memory is Steph, we got Tom, Les. I believe that's everybody. Vanity. We're going all the way to the top. Yeah, thank you all for being here and moderating. And we have had about 250 people, 270 people tonight, 269 likes. Thank you all for coming. Really appreciate it. And Dan Wilson from Debunk the Funk. Thank you for joining me tonight, Dan. It's really cool.
Hey, thanks so much, Vincent. This is fun.
And keep up the good work. And don't give up. I know you're not going to give up. You're not the kind of guy. Given the stuff you've done, you're not going to give up. So thank you for what you do. We really appreciate it.
I'll keep going as long as life lets me.
Yeah, right. That's the limitation, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, folks. Next week, no live stream on Wednesday because I will be at a coronavirus meeting in Switzerland recording a TWIV on Monday. I'll be there all week. So see you in 2 weeks. Meanwhile, everybody, be safe. Thank you and good night. Bye-bye.
Good night, everyone.